Welcome to Ethics Shorts. Whether you're a seasoned professional, a student embarking on your counseling journey, or simply curious about the ethical dimensions of mental health, this podcast is for you. Our hosts will unravel ethical quandaries, explore real-life scenarios, and discover the gray areas that shape our profession. This podcast is sponsored by the Arkansas Counseling Association. The views expressed in the content belong to the content creators and not the organization, its affiliates, or employees. Let's talk about ethics.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Jones, and this is Helen Jennings Hood, and we want to welcome you to another episode of Ethics Shorts. And today we have an interesting topic we want to jump into. We're going to be looking at the ethics of training clinicians to be generalists. And I thought that was a really good question that came in. And so, as I usually do, I'm going to kind of kick it over to Helen to kind of get us started. But like when this question came in and it's talking about looking at counseling education programs, specifically master's program and things of that nature, and how there's a tendency to train our clinicians to be generalists when it comes to clinician. I would love to hear some of your thoughts on that, and especially as you're a doc student and going through this process. And I'll talk about my experience as well as from being a counselor educator. But kind of interested how you look at this from an ethical point of view as a clinician, also someone who's going to be teaching in here pretty soon.
Well, I have lots of thoughts about this. I have my own personal experience, and then I see some different sides of it, like pros and cons. In my own experience, there was a lot of support for being a generalist or learning as a generalist clinician within the program. And I see this a lot in a lot of different master's level programs, kind of teaching very broadly, teaching client issues and client populations pretty broadly, and therefore kind of developing counseling students and new counselors as generalists who can be everything to everyone in a way. And I think that this can be really hard without a balance of, talking about maybe even from the beginning, developing that idea that there's going to be certain populations, certain issues, certain types of counseling that you can do that you are well suited for and that you can do a lot of really good work in. And I think if we're not teaching counseling students that aspect to balance out that generalist model education, that we're really doing them a disservice and probably supporting that burnout model that happens when LACs go out into practice and tend to kind of end up in community mental health settings where they're really encouraged or forced to be generalist counselors. And, we see a lot of stress in that way. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a good topic to talk about because I think there's pros and cons. When we talk about this generalist model. From I think from a counselor educator perspective, as I think about the way I teach and some of the programs I've taught in the past, I would say the majority of them have kind of been. I mean, obviously, when we think about K-Craft and we think about the standards that we have for our master's programs, there are obviously certain competencies we have to hit to make sure that the students are getting out there and that everybody has the same, it's close to the same as possible knowledge base when they're getting out to the field. So I think that's helpful, from that perspective. But I think the part and what I definitely agree with you is that model of teaching that we're doing doesn't, like I said, it doesn't really match up well with what happens when they get into the field. Because I think about my time in community mental health, and I was doing community mental health way past having my LAC. I'd already been in the field for goodness gracious over a decade at this point before I did community mental health, and some of the cases that I saw myself having to deal with, they were even difficult for me in that space, even though I had been in the field for an extremely long time and had learned new things and had specialized training. That stuff was still very difficult because I was seeing a wide variety of clients, but at the same time, I was seeing, I had supervisees during that time period who were in community mental health too. and they're seeing a little bit of everything every hour. 8 o'clock, it may be, they may have somebody with major depressive disorder. Yeah, at 9 o'clock, they may have somebody who may have a possible eating disorder. And because because their training is really been, like you said, from a generalist model, they're not really sure where to go to kind of to how to help those clients. And then there's also that problem of them not being adequately prepared to do that. But once again, there's an expectation to do it because that's the client that's walked through the door at that time period. So yeah, I do feel that tension of for programs to keep up with our standards, but also keep up with what actually is going on practically in the field with people. So yeah, I do think it's a hard balance to draw there.
And I think it does put a lot of pressure on the programs themselves to make sure that the curriculum, of course, aligns with CACREP and what the competencies, like the basic foundational knowledge needs are and training needs. But it kind of requires that they're also finding that balance that I talked about earlier. And the benefits that I see of it within the counseling program are that you do have that basic competency knowledge training structure, because I think all clinicians need that. They need to know how to function, what it looks like, and why we're doing what we're doing in different ways, shapes, and forms. We need that knowledge. We need to know. But I think there needs to be a balance, and the programs are a really good way of doing that, because they have so much safety net capacities kind of built into the structure of the program. So, maybe this is something we can be talking about from the beginning. Like, we're going to be teaching broadly. We're going to be teaching you a generalist model of skills, and you're going to be getting a generalist education. But when you get into your practicum, when you get into your internship classes, be practicing from that generalist model, but also pay really good attention to developing your professional identity. Who do you work well with? Who do you really struggle to work with? Let's talk about this during your program when you have all this supervision, you have all this safety, and you have the ability to learn what you need to learn to grow. I think it kind of goes back to even like the very core basic beginning ACA codes of ethics, like A1A, your primary responsibility, and then A4A, do no harm, don't hurt people. It goes back to our values, beneficence and non-maleficence. If you're seeing everybody all the time, you're going to not do well with some people and potentially harm them. But you're also going to do really well with some people and do great for them. But if you're more honed in on your practice and you're learning that early before you even get launched into the field, you're hurting fewer people and you're helping more people. So I think it's a really good area to grow our new clinicians and strengthen our profession overall, just by investing that little piece into their professional identity and training.
And I agree with that. And to me, a part of that goes back to exposure in a when they're in a master's program to individuals who have specialized training. So if you're in a master's program, and if the university has somebody who's like a specialist in DBT, for example, or somebody who's a specialist in EMD, or something, or some different modality of training, and being able to make sure that they're able to see that from a clinical perspective, that helps to kind of get their eyes a little bit more open to, oh, okay, so if I'm going to be getting out here in this field, if I'm going to work with individuals who are dealing with trauma, or if I'm going to work with someone who we're going to work with children, what I'm getting here is not enough.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So I need to make that investment into going into those areas, like you said, that I'm passionate about, but also have the training for it too. Because the thing about it, passion alone without preparation doesn't really help anything. I think those two things have to go together. Yes, be passionate about what you're working on, but also we need to have that training that goes along with that, so that we can put those two things together. And I think that will go back to protecting the public significantly, because now people feel like they can say no to clients, because I think I hear that a lot in classes I teach, or even with new supervisees once they've graduated, is they've gone through this training model of kind of being a generalist, and they don't feel like they can say no to a client that walks through the door. And the reality of it is, we need to have that ability, and we do have that ability to say, no, I can't see this client because it does not fall within my scope or practice, and I don't have the right type of training to be able to do what I'm being asked to do. So yeah, but I think there has to be some that message has to be coming to them from somewhere, that their ability to be able to say no, and it has to be planned, I think, as soon as possible. And I'm hoping we're doing that in counseling programs as early as they possibly can, so that, like you said, when they get to field experience, they're a lot more open to experimenting and trying new populations, but also knowing, okay, I may not end up doing this, or if I am going to do this, just practicum or field experience is not going to be enough. I'm going to have to get that formalized training to get better at this. And so when I leave here, yes, I can see several different populations, but here's a population I'm really good at, and I've got the certifications and letters and everything I need to be able to do this in an ethical manner there.
But I think it protects the community quite a bit, just by not forcing clinicians or not expecting clinicians to be everything for everybody, because we literally cannot, and we should not. But it also protects our new clinicians coming into the field. We're never going to run out of people to treat. There's always going to be a need for counselors and mental health clinicians. And I think that specialization and having the safety to identify that this population is really hard for me, and having the safety to discuss, okay, is that something that I need to work on with me? Do I need more education and training? Do I need my own therapy? Or is this maybe just not a good fit for me? And should I, put my energy elsewhere? Having the safety and the ability to do that in our programs, in our supervision, things like that, I think is really important. And I think that master's students, it's not that the safety may not be there, but I think there's also that component of, I want to do really well and I want the good grade. And it's not always about the good grade or, the perfect skills shown or something like that. It's about admitting that I have deficits and I can't be everyone for everybody. And so I think that expectation, just setting it out there, like, you're not going to be able to be everything for everybody. Because I really, like, you were talking about, like, hearing from students and hearing from LACs and supervision about feeling like you couldn't say no. Like, that was exactly my experience. I really went out of my program thinking that I could be the clinician for everyone, and I should be. But also kind of think about, like, what expectation that sets new clinicians up for, as far as, like, competency, because we preach and preach and preach at them in ethics class. Don't do something if you're not competent, and this is what competency looks like, so these are the steps you take. If you're going out and being a generalist, imagine what your competency training and education would look like. That would be a 40-hour week by itself. That's too much. So, I mean, I think that just, like, it's a simple change, and even just, like, the way we deliver the information. And I think it could be really, I think it could be a new way to, like, build up our profession and strengthen it a lot. So I ethically think, I think that ethically we should be teaching the generalist model, but I think that to be fair and ethical and build up the profession, we should also build in that component of, like, who are your people? Who do you do the best work with? What are your skills? What are your passions? And how do we put energy into that while you're here and you have all these safety nets?
Yeah, to me, there is definitely a need for a paradigm shift as we're going through this. I mean, I started my master's program back in, we won't say how long ago I started. It was a long time ago. And I can remember, I'm not sure where I got it from. It was either from a professor or from a supervisor after that. But some of the advice I was given was, once you graduate, fake it for 5. And what they basically meant by that was just whoever comes to your door, it's like you know what you're doing and you're going to get that. Mm-hmm. And luckily, I ended up getting some really good supervision after I became licensed, and as a part of my licensing process, to help kind of change that paradigm for me, because I realized that was not a good idea. Because fake it for 5 basically means whoever comes up, you do what you need to do, be that generalist, take in everybody that comes in. You're trained to see everything. And that really that's not realistic because it's not healthy for, like I said, it's not healthy for the client at all because they may be better suited to work with somebody else.
Yeah.
And I don't have to see everybody. I think so. I think that's a part of it. And then two, there really needs to be that space that is created where I can say, okay, I'm not working with this particular clientele. And it's not anything because I have a bias against clientele or anything like that. It's just I know that I just don't work well with that population. And so, for example, I think about being a generalist, I used to work with kids quite a bit. But one of the things I learned was the longer I work with kids, I realized, okay, I'm working with clients from age 5 all the way up to age 75, basically, what the beginning of my career looked like. And as I got further into the field and got more experience, I started to realize, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing with these kids.
Yeah.
I took a couple classes in counseling children when I was through my master's program and things like that, and all that was great. But I was never trained in play therapy. That's not something that I have a great understanding of. So, but because this is the spaces I was in, I was still working with these kids and doing that and begin to realize, okay, I'm actually working outside of my scope because I didn't go on to get specialized training in that area. And so there became a time where I said, you know what, I'm not working with children anymore. And so I changed changed my scope of practice to say, okay, this is the age range I'm working with. And I've kind of really have specialized the population I'm working with because my training has changed. I've changed as a clinician over the years. And I have gotten a lot more confidence in being able to say, okay, once again, these are my people. This is who I need to be working with. And once again, it's not to be at the exclusion of anybody else or because I don't want to work with anybody else. It's just that I know that a certain population I'm really, really good at, and I have the training to work with that population. And so I choose to spend my time there. And if as a client calls in and they need a clinician, I'm willing to refer them to somebody else because it's not because I don't want to work with them. It's because I know there's other people out there who are super passionate about that and they have the training experience to do it. And that to me, I think that protects me and that protects the client a lot more.
And I think that's like, to me, that sounds very ethical, like very ethical best practice. You do something really well, or maybe like a handful of things really well. You spend your training energy, your education energy, your growth energy as a clinician on that population, working with them. And you said something that I think is another really big point, and why I think this strengthens our profession overall is that the generalist model, I really feel like kind of breeds competition between clinicians. Because if you're all doing everything for everyone, well, then, hey, you took my client, or I don't want to send you a client, or, I can do that too. Whereas if we're all, eventually able to evolve into that kind of best practice self that you're talking about, um, we can easily see, hey, this person called me. Yeah, I mean, we might work really well together, but I know this person over here has spent years of training to work specifically with people like this, and they are passionate about it when they talk about it. They would do really well. And it's about what's best for the client. And it eliminates that competition of, oh, well, we're all doing the same thing. Because as people grow into this, they get very specialized, and we have very clear ways to refer out and feel good about it. We don't necessarily have to know everybody to know that they're good at this, because look at what they've invested into it. Look how passionate they are. And I think it just clarifies a lot of like the community, and counseling needs community. We have to have community. And we're not going to strengthen our profession by being in conflict or in competition with each other.
Yeah, I think we have enough competition going on as it is, as counselors, without having this being another aspect of it. And from some of the classes I teach, and especially when I talk about private practice and things of that nature, that's one of the points I make to the students is that I'm really not in competition with anybody else. And that's not me saying, I don't say that because I think so much of myself. I say that because I know what I do well.
Yeah.
And I want them to find out what it is that they do well. Because whenever you know what you do well and you have spent the time and the training to be at a certain level with this a specific population you're working with, then those are all the referrals I end up getting. And so I know I do well with that. And so I don't feel like I'm competing with anybody in private practice. I don't feel like I'm competing with anybody as a therapist because I prepared myself for this particular population and it's working out great. Just like there's other therapists out there who prepared themselves for other populations. And I'm not a competition for them because I'm not seeing those clients. And my thing is like I'm sharing them on because I know that if, like, for example, if someone calls me about someone who's dealing with an eating disorder or whatever the case may be, there are specific people I know who are absolutely amazing at that. So my thing is I don't feel bad about it. I make that direct referral because I know that person is good at what they're doing. They have spent the time to specialize in that area. And I know that that person's getting, they'll be placed with a good clinician who's going to help them. And that doesn't make me less than of a clinician because that's not my specialty area. To me, I think it just strengthens the profession overall. And it does bring, I think, like I said, it does bring that community now because there's no sense of competition. So we just freely refer back and forth, and I know I'm not talking about really about referral, but I think that kind of loops that into the code there. Like I think that's the ethical way of doing referral is being able to really find the people who have prepared and trained themselves for the clients that come in. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to be us. And I think I think we have to approach that with some humility to be able to say, hey, I'm not the right person for this person.
And, just like clients remember really good counselors and really bad counselors, they remember good referrals too, important referrals. And I think referrals, we need to kind of look at referrals in like the communal aspect of a way to support each other and to support our clients. And it does build that community. Because you may send this client to that person who does eating disorders and has trained and really poured into themselves to be able to meet the needs of that space. But maybe that client knows another client that fits your population really well. People remember these things, and then it's a way of us as clinicians supporting each other, and we have to be able to do that. So referrals on all sides are a way of supporting other clinicians and supporting those clients, even if they don't become our clients.
I agree, and I think I'm glad we're talking through this a little bit because I think I'm hoping that from this there can be some that sense of relief for. I think that a lot of clinicians are really needing to be able to say, okay, I don't have to do all of this.
Yes.
I don't have to be responsible for everybody that walks in, and to me that is an extreme amount of pressure
Yes.
to feel.
Yes.
Because I know, especially in my introduction I love teaching introduction to counseling. And the reason why I like that class is because I want clinicians to know by the time they finish that class, that this is what it looks like to be a therapist. And one of the points I always bring up for them in that class is, okay, you need to find yourself. That's really what a lot of this clinician stuff is about. It's like, you need to find who you're going to be as a clinician and find that quickly. Find your voice as a clinician as quickly as you can as a part of a program, because you may have started a program for one reason, but as you go through it and you learn more do that self-discovery, then now you can kind of grow from that, and now you found yourself, and that's going to make a big difference in who you're going to be working with. And so now when you are going through your program, yes, you're getting different information about different populations. And yes, you need to learn all those things. I think it's important because sometimes you will be the only person that person can see. And I get where there's situations like that.
Yeah.
But for me, I want them to be encouraged to be able to already in their mind be thinking, okay, yeah, although I'm able to work with a wide variety of people, really where am I going to fit into this piece? Because I didn't really feel like this counseling profession has space for all of us.
Yeah.
We just need to come to that conclusion too, that okay, there is space. We're never going to run out of clients. We're never going to run out of people to see. So because of that, who am I going to be responsible for in this work?
Getting permission to claim your space, because there's space enough for everybody. So being able to grow as a clinician and having permission to claim that space.
Yes. And I feel like a lot of people have not felt that ability to claim that space. And so hopefully something we said today will kind of inspire them to be able to look for that. So
Yeah.
appreciate you, like also asking as usual, for kind of talking this through this with me, and I'm hoping that that if you're watching this video, I'm hoping that this has been helpful for you. And once again, I know we say this a lot as we do these videos. If you have questions or comments or whatsoever, please feel free to send them out to us. You can post those below the video. We always check those out there, but we're always looking for different questions to be able to talk about, and also we read your comments. So just as you're watching these videos and you want to add something to the conversation, or even you're saying, hey, I don't agree with you, we would love to even hear that from you as well. That helps us as we try to approach these different topics and talk about it. So appreciate y'all viewing, and looking forward to seeing y'all at another edition of Ethics Shorts. Y'all take care.